The woman I loved just pulled a gun on my bride, and I let her. Gasps echoed through the chapel. My best man froze mid-speech. My mother screamed. And there, standing in the aisle in a crimson dress with a Glock in her shaking hands, was Madeline Pierce. The woman I took in 3 years ago when she had nothing. The woman who used to whisper, "Thank you," in her sleep. The woman I thought loved me, until she vanished without a word 6 months ago. And now she was back. Not with flowers or tears, but with steel, venom in her voice, and her aim locked squarely on Emily Carter, the woman I was moments from marrying. "Don't do it, Mads," I said quietly, holding my arms out like I could somehow still protect her from herself. She laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You really think I came to stop the wedding?" Her eyes glistened. "I came to finish the story you started." Guests scrambled, some ducking behind pews. The priest backed away from the altar, palms raised. But I didn't move. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't insanity. It was payback. Madeline's eyes flicked between me and Emily. "You want to marry her, Carter? Fine. Just tell everyone who she really is first. Tell them what she did to my sister. Tell them why you hired me in the first place." My stomach turned ice cold. That secret, our secret, was never supposed to surface. Emily's grip on my arm tightened. "Zane," she whispered, "what is she talking about?" I didn't answer. Because Madeline wasn't bluffing. She'd found out. And now, in front of 200 guests, with a pistol in her hand and fire in her chest, she was ready to burn my perfect day to the ground. But what she didn't know. This wasn't her story anymore. It was mine. And I'd spent months preparing for this moment. She brought a gun to my wedding. I brought a reckoning. 3 years ago, Madeline Pierce was just a name on a resume. An overqualified woman applying for a junior marketing role at the startup I had barely managed to keep alive. She wore the same black blazer to every interview. Her shoes were worn, her eyes dull, but her posture screamed pride. I almost didn't hire her. Not because she wasn't good, but because I didn't think someone like her would stay long. Turns out, she didn't plan to stay. She just had nowhere else to go. I learned weeks later that she used to run her own company, a boutique PR firm in Portland. She was engaged to a venture capitalist who promised her the moon. One hostile takeover and a cheating scandal later, she lost the company, the man, and the apartment they shared. She slept in her car for 2 weeks before walking into my office. I gave her the job. And then, eventually, I gave her everything. I told myself it wasn't pity. That I admired her strength. Her wit. Her ability to take chaos and turn it into calm. She wasn't loud or overly emotional. She was quiet like a storm gathering on the edge of a horizon. She kept to herself at work, never joined after-hours drinks, always declined office gossip. But when we were alone, she relaxed. She smiled. Sometimes, she'd get this far-off look and mutter things like, "If I ever get my life back, I'll burn every bridge I had to crawl under." I didn't know what she meant then. I do now. Over time, she became the engine behind my company's rise. We closed a $3.6 million investment round thanks to her campaign strategy. She redid our branding from scratch. Clients loved her. I fell hard. But I never said it out loud. Because no matter how much time passed, Madeline never fully let her walls down. She never asked to stay at my place, but when she did during a snowstorm, she ended up staying for 3 months. I gave her the guest room. I never once crossed the line. She always looked at me like she knew I wanted more. But she also looked like she'd punish me if I asked. Then Emily Carter entered my life. She was everything Madeline wasn't. Open. Affectionate. Curious. She applied for an account management role 6 months before Madeline disappeared. From the moment we met, Emily pursued me. I resisted at first, partly because of Madeline, and partly because I didn't want to risk another office romance. But Emily didn't just win me over, she healed something. Her love was warm where Madeline's was cold. Loud where Madeline was silent. And for the first time in years, I started to believe I could build a future not haunted by the past. So I asked her to move in. A month later, Madeline resigned by email. No notice. No goodbye. The only clue she left behind was a shredded copy of the Oregon Ledger tucked into her desk drawer. An article was circled in red ink: former CEO's sister dies mysteriously after reporting harassment in tech giant. I didn't understand it then. But I do now. Because Madeline didn't just work for me. She'd been investigating something. Digging into something Emily never wanted anyone to know. And when I look back, I remember Madeline's words, her offhand comment during one of our late-night chats: sometimes justice doesn't wear a badge. Sometimes it wears a pretty dress and waits for the perfect moment to strike. I thought she was talking about herself. Now I'm not so sure. Madeline had secrets. But Emily? Emily had a past she buried so deep even I couldn't find it. And I'm starting to wonder if the woman I plan to marry is even who she says she is. Because one thing's become clear. Madeline didn't bring that gun to stop my wedding. She brought it to expose it. To destroy both of us. And whatever we were hiding, it wasn't buried deep enough. The USB drive landed at my feet like a grenade. Madeline didn't say another word as the officers cuffed her and dragged her down the church aisle. She kept her chin high, eyes locked on me. Not with rage. Not with regret. With certainty. Like she knew this wasn't over. Like she knew the real explosion hadn't even started. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Emily. The house was quiet, tense. She barely spoke, only asked once, "Are you okay?" I lied. Fine. At 3 a.m., I finally opened the USB. There were 6 folders. The first was titled, "Before She Was Emily Carter." Inside was a scan of an old Oregon State ID, Emma Carlisle. Same face. Different name. Different birthday. Different everything. I stared at the photo. Same dimples, same eyes. But the name, that wasn't a typo. Next folder, Carlisle Tech HR Incident Files. A stack of digital documents. Complaints filed by a Marissa Pierce, Madeline's younger sister. The allegations were damning. Emotional coercion. Financial manipulation. Theft of intellectual property. But all of them were brushed under the rug. Every complaint was signed off by the same HR manager, and CC'd to a senior executive, Emma Carlisle. My throat tightened. Emma. Hadn't just worked at the company that drove Madeline's sister to the edge. She'd helped bury the evidence. The third folder. A scanned death certificate. Marissa Pierce. Age 27. Suicide. No autopsy. No follow-up investigation. Just a 2-line police report. My heart shattered in my chest. Madeline's sister had died, and the woman I loved might have helped cover it up. The fourth folder was a recorded phone call. The voice on the other end was unmistakably Madeline's. You knew what they were doing to her. You knew and said nothing. Then silence. Then Emily's voice. I didn't think it would go that far. But you let it. You let them kill her. She was unstable, Mads. I tried to help. No. You helped yourself. I paused the file. My vision blurred with something between rage and heartbreak. All those nights Emily had told me she had a complicated past. All those times she dodged questions about her career before joining my company. She hadn't been vague. She'd been hiding. The fifth folder was a bombshell. Photos. From 6 months ago. Emily in a cafe, exchanging an envelope with a man in a suit, Bryce Langley, CEO of Carlisle Tech. My chest seized. Langley was the one accused of silencing whistleblowers. Emily had told me she barely knew anyone from her previous company. But here she was, handing Langley a sealed envelope, and kissing him on the cheek before leaving. The final folder was a video file labeled, "If you're watching this." Madeline stood in a dark room, wearing the same dress she had at the wedding. "Zane," she said softly. "I never meant for you to get caught in this. I didn't want to hurt you. But you needed to know who she really was before you gave her your life." She looked away for a second. Marissa looked up to me. She believed people would protect her. She believed someone like Emma, would stand up for her. But your fiancé stood by while they ruined her. And when I asked why, all she said was, "It's not personal." She faced the camera again. "So I made it personal. You gave Emma your trust. She returned it with lies. I just did what no one else had the guts to do, drag the truth into the light." I slammed the laptop shut. Every part of me was shaking. Emma, was still asleep upstairs. Still wearing the ring I had placed on her finger just 12 hours earlier. And I finally understood why Madeline aimed the gun at her. Because Emily didn't just break my heart. She broke Madeline's entire world. I stared at our wedding photo on the mantel, us smiling, laughing, pretending everything was perfect. But there was no going back now. Because I wasn't just a man betrayed. I was a man used. And Madeline hadn't come to the wedding to destroy me. She'd come to set me free. I didn't confront Emily right away. Instead, I sat in the dark for hours, trying to process it all. My fiancée wasn't Emily Carter. She was Emma Carlisle. A former executive at the company responsible for burying Marissa Pierce's complaints. And the man she had claimed never to have met, Bryce Langley, was now the linchpin connecting every single lie. But there was still one thing I didn't understand. Why me? I didn't come from money. I wasn't famous. I didn't even crack the top 100 founders in my state. So why, of all people, would a woman like Emma reinvent herself and attach herself to me? By morning, I had an answer. Because she knew what was coming. And she needed a clean name, a clean future. Me. I headed to the law office first. My friend Nate, an attorney who had handled all my incorporation paperwork, sat me down, looked through everything, and said 5 words that made my skin crawl. "You put her on your board." What? I blinked. No. That's not possible. I didn't. "You signed it 3 months ago," he said, sliding the paper across the table. Special board resolution. Made her a non-voting equity member and executive advisor. Gives her access to all quarterly reports and, if you die or become incapacitated, she inherits acting control for up to 12 months. I felt like vomiting. The signature at the bottom was mine. Sloppy, rushed. From a day I vaguely remembered, I'd been on painkillers after a wisdom tooth surgery. She'd brought soup. Sat by my side. Told me there were just a few documents to sign for the investor pitch. She'd played me like a piano. I left the office without saying a word. Back home, Emma, was in the kitchen, dressed in my college sweatshirt, flipping pancakes like nothing had happened. She smiled like the world hadn't just imploded. "Didn't sleep much," she said, pouring coffee into my mug. "Want some breakfast?" I stared at her. And then, carefully, I asked, "Who is Emma Carlisle?" Her hand froze mid-air. For 3 seconds, neither of us moved. Then she lowered the coffee pot and turned to face me. "Where did you hear that name?" "So it's true." She sighed and leaned against the counter. "I was going to tell you. When? After the honeymoon? No, she said softly. After I felt safe enough to believe you'd still look at me the same way. My laughter was hollow. You made me sign over half my company while I was drugged. What exactly did you think I'd look at you like, a victim? I didn't lie to hurt you, Zane. I did what I had to do to survive. After everything that happened, after Marissa. Don't you dare pretend you were the victim in that. You don't know the full story, she snapped. You've only seen Madeline's version. She walked to the cabinet, pulled down a box, and threw it on the table. Inside were old journals. Dozens. Worn leather covers, some torn at the edges. Marissa was my best friend, she whispered. She came to me first when Langley crossed the line. I wanted to help her. But I was just a junior exec back then. No power. No voice. And when I threatened to go public, Langley showed me something. She slid out a file, photos of Marissa drinking heavily, screaming in public, being dragged into a car. They were going to bury her as unstable. Or worse, sue her for libel. They told me if I didn't cooperate, they'd destroy her completely. Her career. Her reputation. Her life. You still cooperated, I said coldly. I thought if I played nice, I could buy time. I didn't know she'd kill herself. Silence stretched between us like a noose. And the new identity? The envelope you gave Langley? Her voice trembled. I turned over a copy of my resignation. And the deal. In exchange for my silence, they let me walk away clean. Start over. And you chose me because I was clean. I chose you because you were kind. I looked away. Because part of me still wanted to believe her. And that was the scariest betrayal of all. 2 days later, I received a letter from the county jail. From Madeline. A single page. Written in thick, looping ink. Zane. If you're reading this, it means I failed. But maybe not completely. You deserved the truth. But you also deserved loyalty. And I wasn't loyal to you. I was loyal to my sister. I used you to get closer to Emily, yes. But I never faked what we shared. I just didn't think you'd ever pick her over me. But now you don't have to choose. They're planning something bigger than you know. Bryce Langley never let her go. Your company is next. And if I can't stop them from in here, I hope you can from out there. M. I stared at the letter for a long time. Because she was right. I wasn't just dealing with two women caught in a tangle of grief and betrayal. There were players behind the scenes. Puppeteers. And my company, the one thing I'd built with my own hands, was about to become collateral damage. Worse. I was sleeping next to the enemy. I didn't flinch as security tackled Avery to the floor, the gun skittering from her hand across the aisle. The guests screamed, ducked, scattered. My bride, Emily, clutched my arm in frozen terror. But I didn't look at her. I stared at the woman on the ground, screaming my name through her tears. Austin. Don't let them take me, I didn't mean to hurt her. Too late. I walked away from the altar that day, not just from a wedding, but from every illusion I had ever believed in. And I made myself a vow. If Avery had the guts to try and destroy my future in front of 100 people, then I would destroy hers, piece by piece, quietly, legally, and publicly. But first, I needed to disappear. The moment Claire pulled the trigger, time shattered. But the gun didn't fire. The chamber clicked empty, because I made sure it would. She screamed, feral and trembling, as security rushed her. The guests screamed, some ducked, others filmed. I didn't flinch. I stared her down, heart hollow. This is who you are now. Not just a liar, not just a user. But a murderer. Her eyes brimmed with betrayal. You left me. You were mine, and you gave your heart to that doll. I stepped forward slowly. I left you with everything. The house. The car. Even the company shares. You didn't lose me. You threw me away. For deals. For power. For that snake, Dean. She writhed as the guards cuffed her, mascara streaking like war paint down her face. You think I loved him? He meant nothing. I waited for you to beg. I crouched beside her, voice low. I begged you once. You laughed. So I became someone who would never beg again. Her sobs were drowned by the crowd's murmur. Dean, bruised and pathetic, had been dragged out hours earlier. Charges were pending. Claire's breakdown would be national news by morning. I turned to my new bride, Lana, who stood shaken but unbroken. Her fingers clutched the lace at her collar, but her eyes stayed on mine. You knew she'd come. I knew she wouldn't let go, I said. I had to let her burn everything down herself. That's the only way people like her stop. A week later, Claire was in a holding cell, denied bail. Her company, our company, technically, was seized during a federal investigation into fraud. Thanks to documents I'd handed over anonymously. Dean. Gone. Rumors were he fled the country using offshore accounts he built while Claire was too drunk on control to notice. Turns out betrayal breeds betrayal. As for me, I didn't take back the company. I started a new one. Smaller. Sharper. Built on truth, not glitter. With Lana as my co-founder. Her strength had held me steady through the storm. But the past doesn't die easily. A letter came one rainy afternoon, no return address. Just one line in bold black ink. You think you've won. But you forgot who taught you the game. I folded the letter with a grim smile. Claire was done for now. But someone else had stepped onto the board. And I was ready. I turned to the camera crew filming my new investor series and said with a grin, "Want to hear the story of how I burned my old empire to the ground and built something better? You're going to love episode 1. I didn't press charges. That was the first surprise. It confused Avery. It confused everyone. The media dubbed me the runaway groom. But while the public speculated, I was already in New York, 5 states away, building the next step of my plan. With my savings, I bought into a mid-size private equity firm, focusing on hostile takeovers and corporate restructuring. Cold, surgical stuff. I rebranded. Changed my name publicly from Austin Maddox to A. Wyatt Maddox. Grew the beard. Slicked back the charm. Over the next year, I made enough silent moves to pull majority voting rights from the board of Sapphire 9, Avery's company. She didn't even know I was her largest shareholder. Yet. I sent in my Trojan horse, Claire Monroe. Tall, brilliant, ruthless. She had once been fired by Avery during a scandal Avery covered up. I gave Claire a new identity, new resume, and the mission of her life: get hired into Avery's executive team and make her trust you. It took 3 months. Avery loved her. Promoted her to Chief Strategy Officer. Meanwhile, Claire leaked everything. Internal conflicts. Supplier vulnerabilities. Even personal texts Avery sent during board meetings. And still, Avery never realized she was standing in a trap. With my intel, I built a phantom competitor, Arc Line Holdings, in Asia. It looked like a rapidly scaling logistics firm that was outbidding Sapphire 9 on every deal. Behind the curtain, it was all smoke and mirrors. But investors panicked. Stock prices dipped. Partnerships fell through. One of the VC firms pulled out. And Avery? She begged the board to inject emergency capital to survive. That's when I walked back into her boardroom. In a sharp black suit, a polished accent, and a calmness honed by fury. She didn't recognize me. Not until I spoke. "We have a majority acquisition offer from Arc Line," Claire said to the board, sliding the papers across the table. "They propose a buyout of Sapphire 9 at 37% above current market value." The board gasped. Avery frowned. "And who represents Arc Line?" I stepped forward, placed a small box on the table, and opened it. Inside was a single sapphire. Her company's namesake. The first gift I ever gave her. She used to wear it on a chain around her neck. Her face went pale. "Austin?" "Not Austin anymore," I said. "Mr. Maddox, if you don't mind. The one who built your competitor, bought your board, and now owns your company." I let her rage. She accused me of fraud, manipulation, revenge. But every move I made was legal. Her NDA violations were documented. Her false claims about revenue projections. Claire had evidence of it all. When she tried to sue, I smiled in court as her lawyers choked on their own arguments. She lost her position within 3 weeks. Lost her penthouse next. And then her car. Her beach house. Her beloved reputation. The final blow. Claire leaked Avery's diary to a journalist. The entries revealed every manipulative lie she told me during our 3 years together. How she had laughed when I proposed. How she called me the pet dog with money. The internet feasted on it. Sapphire 9 was now Arc Line East, and Avery Quinn was a disgraced ex-CEO trending on TikTok for all the wrong reasons. But revenge is not just in financial ruin. It's in emotional unraveling. So I gave her one last choice. At an anonymous email, I sent her a proposition. "If you want to know why I didn't press charges at the wedding, meet me where it all began. The diner we first met in, 3 years ago. Tuesday. Midnight. She showed up. Broken. Shaking. No makeup. No entourage. Just Avery. "Austin," she whispered, voice cracking. I looked at her and said nothing for 5 long minutes. Then finally, I slid a photo across the table. It was of me and Emily, married, in a private ceremony 3 weeks ago. "Avery. I didn't press charges because you didn't ruin my life that day. You set it free." She blinked. "Emily was in on it. She staged the wedding for you to break it up. So you could expose yourself. I knew you still watched me. I knew you couldn't handle me loving someone else." Her eyes widened in horror. "I baited you. And you fell for it." She grabbed the edge of the table, trembling. "You set me up from the start." "No," I said calmly. "You set it up the day you called me forgettable. I just took good notes." As I left her there sobbing, I felt something I hadn't in years: peace. It wasn't about love. It wasn't even about winning. It was about showing her that I was never weak. I had simply been kind. And she mistook that for submission. I got in my car, turned the engine, and never looked back.